Welcome back to Scenes from the Screen, where we talk about all types of films and TV. Obscure, forgotten, prestigious, rotten, from must-see to, are you kidding me? Big screen and small, we cover it all. Who knows? You might discover a new gem or be reintroduced to an old favorite. My name is Sean, and I'll be your host. Holly and I had our comedy movie planned for this week, but she's paddling in a competition and needed a little extra practice time, so we rescheduled. That one will be coming up in the next few weeks. In lieu of that, I felt that it was only right to offer up something special, so enjoy the first ever triple feature. I'm sure you're thinking, at this pace, he's going to run out of movies, to which I would politely reply, no fucking way. Keep in mind that I'm not randomly tossing movies together either. Where's the fun in that? For me to be interested, and thereby make it interesting for you, there has to be a theme of sorts, or, at the very least, something connecting them, however tenuous. In this case, there is a main theme, which is the love of movies, but also, to a certain degree, the obsession with them. But as I watched all three, there's more that connects them, and I'll touch on that at the end. If you're unfamiliar with the titles, that's fine, because at some point I was too, and maybe all three will be something you will eventually seek out and enjoy on your own. Two of these three films are documentaries. Wait, don't go away. I understand a lot of people are turned off by documentaries for some odd reason, but if done well, they can actually be more entertaining than a fictional film. They offer a little slice of history that would otherwise go unnoticed or, even worse, ignored. Sit back, relax, close your eyes, not if you're driving, keep them open, and join me on this brief journey through the love of film. I'm going to start with the documentaries, and I promise that if you stick around till the end, I'll share a little secret with you about the first time I ever saw our final film. You've probably never heard of Z Channel. Hell, I had no idea what it was when I happened upon and purchased the DVD many years ago. I read the description on the back, and it seemed interesting. Yet it languished in my collection until a few months ago, when I made it a point to pop it in the player and watch. And it's utterly fascinating. Z Channel, A Magnificent Obsession, is directed by Zan Cassavetes, the daughter of actor-director John Cassavetes and actress Gina Rollins, and chronicles the history of Los Angeles' groundbreaking pay TV station, Z Channel, a precursor to HBO, Showtime, and Cinemax, and arguably the grandfather of current numerous streaming services. The station reran movies uninterrupted and uncut, and even put out a monthly magazine featuring articles on films appearing that month, as well as critical reviews. Z Channel is best known for eclectic programming, and is inextricably linked with the person responsible for that, Jerry Harvey, already well known and highly regarded in the eyes of area locals for creating acclaimed cinematic lineups for the Beverly Cannon Theater. He did more than just rub elbows with legendary directors like Sam Peckinpah and Robert Altman. He was a respected colleague in their eyes and, to a certain few, a friend. During his tenure, Harvey put a spotlight on injustice within the film industry and arguably created certain things we now take for granted. For example, he insisted upon airing the original director's cuts of films like Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate, Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America, and Bernardo Bertolucci's 1900, when the studios took it upon themselves to heavily edit those films to the point where they were incoherent and unrecognizable. Harvey also championed obscure filmmakers like Henry Jaglom and Stuart Cooper. Finally, he provided a home for films that failed to get theatrical releases or support of any kind. The film intertwines the tale of both the pay cable station itself, as well as Harvey, who had a tumultuous life. His father, for example, was a violent alcoholic, and Harvey was also plagued by a number of other personal issues long before his affiliation with Z Channel. Harvey's fate is revealed shortly after the film opens, but what follows is no less engrossing. One friend states that he acted and inspired others to value these things of beauty. That may ultimately be Harvey's legacy, even if it only touched a segment of the population who had Z Channel, or even those who watched this documentary. Z Channel, A Magnificent Obsession, introduced me to a slew of movies I've never even heard of and am definitely intrigued by. Several directors noted that their films may have never been seen or even lost to time had it not been for Harvey championing their work. Will I like the films featured on Z Channel and in the documentary? Maybe, maybe not. But at least I'm aware they exist and can seek them out. There are some that I've already seen and didn't care for, like Robert Altman's Images and Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. But I'm glad they exist because I see the artistic merit in them, even if I'm not a fan. I think what Z Channel and its competitors did in terms of programming in the early days of pay cable is taken for granted now due to the almost limitless options we have. But I don't think many services are able to strike the delicate balance between art films, foreign films, commercial and box office successes, and even bizarre offerings like Z Channel seem to have done. Certainly not on a programming level, which is nearly extinct as an art form in and of itself. Turner Classic Movies may be the closest we have right now, but it is a little repetitive and sometimes gears too much towards the beginning of the 20th century. The Criterion channel may also be similar with its Live 24 ad-free channel, but I've not subscribed as of yet, so I can't comment on its effectiveness. Major services like HBO, Showtime, Netflix, and others feature movies, but have also shifted focus to a heavy emphasis on original series, reruns of old TV shows, and reality retreads. The way in which we consume films at home has also changed because almost anything is available at any time. Instead of appreciating someone's love of film that was painstakingly arranged for a specific reason, like a musical mixtape, for example, we can hop from one thing to another without passion or purpose. I'm guilty of this as well, but that's because there's nothing out there truly like Z Channel. Is Z Channel a magnificent obsession rewatchable? Absolutely, but you really have to appreciate film for a repeat viewing, or even to catch the dozens upon dozens of films mentioned within it. It's currently on Amazon Prime, but also available on DVD. Now, if you've got Prime, that's where you can also rent The Movie Man, the story of Keith Stata, a former construction worker who both built and still operates Highlands Cinema in the extremely small town of Kinmount, Ontario, which has a current population of about 500. Highlands Cinemas started out as a one-theater building that resembled a private home, and though construction began in 1975, it wouldn't open to the public until 1979, when it welcomed its first and only moviegoer for the inaugural film. Now, a turnout like that might deter an ordinary person, or even cause them to reconsider their goals. But Keith Stata is no ordinary person. He came from meager means, not having indoor plumbing until the age of 14, and strict parenting, noting his mother was particularly stern, with his father having a Jekyll and Hyde personality, nice normally, but abusive when drunk. Stata nevertheless found solace in films, though he remained pragmatic about his future. He admitted that he realized almost immediately there was no future in making films, as Hollywood was over 2,600 miles away. But showing movies? That was an achievable goal. Recognizing the potential of 20 acres of land and a unique theater-going experience, Stata built additions as the decades went on, allowing the Highlands to blossom into 5 distinct theaters, all showing first-run films. It reminded me of the Winchester House, but with purpose. The only ghostly voices propelling him forward were those of the past, his life and love of films. In The Movie Man, Stata states that time's limited. You have to make the most of it. The only significance we have is whatever we do here. Well, he's done quite a bit. In a town that was known long ago for its mills, it's tourism that now drives the economy, and Stata uses his theater to make the most of it. Equating theaters to cathedrals and attendance as an almost religious experience, Stata realizes that his theater has to be special, as Kinmount is a place where people merely pass through on their way to somewhere else, rather than being an ultimate destination. In addition to the theaters, Stata has compiled dozens of displays filling hallways and even entire rooms. Exhibits range from a large horror-themed room to smaller glass cases, each reflecting a certain decade, and include both film memorabilia and other bits of paraphernalia from times gone by. There are old movie projectors and cameras, toys, and even a rare alien creature designed by Stan Winston, of which there were only 100 ever made. It's no accident that the decor in Stata's theater cherishes the past, while the screens show only first-run films, as his favorite movie of all time is the 1960 sci-fi film The Time Machine, starring Rod Taylor and, a name I always enjoy saying, Yvette Mimieux. Stata himself even notes that he'd love to have a time machine of his own to propel himself into the future, curious as to how things will turn out, not only with his theater, but with the industry itself. Now, if that were it, that all that's been mentioned so far was reflective of who Stata is as a person, that'd be pretty cool in and of itself. But Stata, like his theater, is one of a kind and quite the character. While the theater is the main attraction, he also single-handedly, well, along with his business partner and former construction co-worker Roland Hamilton, and an almost annually rotating staff of teens working summer jobs, cares for dozens of cats, a few dogs, and even local wildlife, which all benefit from the nightly leftover popcorn. In fact, he built a large housing area for the furry felines that looks like a giant cat habit trail. How the fuck do you not love this guy? Stata can be a bit cranky sometimes, not unlike resident celebrity Gumpy Cat. He calls canola oil bullshit, preferring coconut oil. He expects perfection out of staff. He bickers with coworkers, including Hamilton. Sometimes he has reason to be cranky. Open only for a brief time during the year due to the obstacles winter presents, Highlands and Stata have to make the most of the little time and resources they have. Staff rotates all the time with constant training issues as a result, building maintenance and the physical and fiscal toll they take, and previously unforeseen events like the pandemic. The specter of COVID looms large over the documentary, as when a virus prohibits people from gathering in enclosed spaces, it results in shutting the theater down. But for how long, and will it ever reopen? Staten maintains throughout that success is making people happy, and that happiness is that somebody remembers even long after the experience, or that you're gone. He contemplates retirement and closing for good due to the overwhelming setback of COVID, combined with his, and I agree, assertion that Hollywood has an issue making movies no one's interested in, as well as streaming and movies at home taking over. Personally, I'd love to visit the theater and may make a trip if we're ever in Toronto again, as it's only 2.5 hours northeast of the city. For now, all I can do is enjoy The Movie Man and everything the film and the subject has to offer. It's definitely a rewatchable film, as I've already done so twice. Once for this episode, and another when Holly watched it and I got out of an appointment early. Time is catching up with Stata and the film industry itself, but he perseveres, largely because he loves what he does, almost to the point of obsession. The Movie Man explores that obsession and much more. It's a reflection on life and legacy and what makes you both happy and relevant in the world. As one patron puts it, legacy would have to be passed on to someone who has the same passion. One wonders if that will ever happen, as the theater, the community, and Stata are all bound together as one. Well, you made it through the first two. See, I told you documentaries were interesting. And now we arrive at our third and final selection, the Academy Award winner for Best Foreign Language Film. Oh, I didn't mention Cinema Paradiso was a foreign film. Like documentaries, foreign films can also be intimidating to some. So for those in the US who don't appreciate them, just think of it as an American film, but in another language. And if you trusted me to take you this far, why not see it through to the end? I don't think you'll be disappointed, and besides, you want to know that secret, right? Legacy and community also play an important role in Cinema Paradiso, which tells the story of Salvatore, nicknamed Toto, a young boy obsessed with all things movies, and Alfredo, the local projectionist who runs the films for the theater in a small post-World War II Sicilian town. The film begins with a much older Toto, now gray and middle-aged, coming home to a woman in his bed who relays the information that his mother called, mistook her for someone else, and wanted him to know that Alfredo passed away. The majority of the rest of the film unfolds in flashback as Toto reflects upon his youth. Toto is a staple at the local theater, planted in the seats to watch whatever movie happens to be playing when not dashing up to continually pester Alfredo to let him help in the projectionist booth. Before Toto or anyone else can see films and Alfredo run them, they must be reviewed by the local priest who rings the bell whenever something lewd and lascivious crosses the screen, sometimes even something as a simple peck on the lips. Alfredo splices them out and tosses them into a bin. Toto asks what he does with them, and Alfredo, hesitating, states that he reinserts them before sending them back. Toto doesn't quite buy it. Toto and Alfredo have a playful yet adversarial relationship at first, Toto being the son Alfredo never had, and Alfredo substituting for Toto's father, who is revealed to have died in the war. Toto badly wants to learn, but Alfredo continually tries to dissuade him, saying that's no life for him. Though Alfredo repeatedly kicks Toto out of the booth, he secretly enjoys having the company. One night, Toto's mother waits for him outside the theater to berate and punish him for not buying milk, as well as spending the money she gave him on movies. Alfredo rescues Toto, lying to protect him, and states that Toto did lose the money, and it was found on the theater floor, taking money out of his own pocket to give to her. Later, when Toto's collection of film strips catch fire in his home, nearly injuring his sister, his mother forbids Toto to go to the theater and makes Alfredo swear not to remain friends with him. That doesn't last long. When Alfredo has to take a grade school equivalency test, he begs Toto for help, only for the latter to blackmail him into teaching him the ways of projection. The scene is masterfully done with almost no dialogue and very comical in nature. One night, when a popular film cannot be seen by some locals due to limited showings, Alfredo demonstrates the power of film, reflecting the images on a building across the square and propping a speaker in the window so that the town can enjoy. This scene is definitely the centerpiece of the story, where strong images alone can carry the tale. The unselfish satisfaction on Alfredo's face, the delight and awe on Toto's, and the sheer rapt enjoyment of the crowd in the square. It's moments like these where Cinema Paradiso burns brightly. Speaking of burning, a sudden fire in the projectionist booth destroys the theater, which is soon rebuilt, and severely injures Alfredo, resulting in him being blind, and Toto the only person who knows how to run the projector. The legacy is passed. Time passes and we see inevitable change, not only through montage, but also little nuances in actual scenes. Toto will always be Toto to some, but to Elena, the new girl in school he develops a crush on as a teenager, it's now Salvatore. The theater and town also go through their own changes as well. The actual film being used is no longer susceptible to fire thanks to technological advances. For the most part, changes are relatively imperceptible. So when Elena's parents move away and Toto loses touch with her, Alfredo tells Toto that life isn't like in the movies. Life is much harder. He encourages Toto to leave the town and see the world instead of pining for the girl. Alfredo finally tells Toto never to come back or to see him again. He says, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to hear talk about you. Fuck, that's great dialogue. Anyway, Toto moves away and doesn't return for 30 years. In the interim, he became a famous and well-respected film director, and some of the locals now refer to him as Mr. DeVita, making him smile. During his visit, Toto not only sees familiar faces, but also sees what's become of the town, its inhabitants, and even his beloved theater, the Paradiso. In the end, Alfredo's widow gives Toto something Alfredo left behind, should Toto ever return. Now, I know the movie is almost 40 years old, but I'm goddamn well not going to spoil what that is if you've never seen it. But it should drive you to tears, as it did me. I was in college, sitting on the couch, watching it on VHS, and the floodgates just opened up at the end of that movie. So there it is, the secret I mentioned at the beginning, and I hope it was worth sticking around for, but also not the sole reason you kept listening. Cinema Paradiso is only one of 5 movies to make me cry, so that's saying a lot, because I'm not that sentimental when it comes to most things, including movies. As to what the other 4 are, well, I'll mention them at some point in the future. I love this film for so many reasons, beginning with the fact that it's the best movie about movies. Director and co-writer Giuseppe Tornatore crafted a nearly flawless film that also ranks as one of the finest coming-of-age stories of all time. And the score by Ennio Morricone is incredible, suiting the bittersweet story that's laced with comedy, trauma, and tragedy perfectly. Tornatore definitely uses strong imagery rather than extensive dialogue to convey emotions in many places, especially trusting Philippe Noiret as Alfredo and, forgive me if I pronounce his name incorrectly, Salvatore Cassio playing the young Toto to do all the heavy lifting. The scenes between the two are magical and really elevate the film regardless of whether they're on screen together or alone. They're mostly together. The rest of the cast is also excellent, but those two are the standouts and the film really shines during that part of the story. Now, I said before that Cinema Paradiso is nearly flawless, because there are some faults with the film, albeit trivial, and primarily with the length. The first version I saw back in college was the one I recently rewatched, though this time on my old DVD copy instead of VHS. During the meat of the story, which focuses on the young Toto and Alfredo, it's extremely well paced and edited and unfolds organically. That also applies a bit to when we meet the teenage Toto, but that's where the film starts to suffer a bit in terms of pacing and story. When I thought of this film over the years, I remember 2 things. That beginning, with Alfredo and Toto, when the relationship between the two develops, as well as the very end reveal of Alfredo's gift. The rest was always kind of muddled for some reason, and rewatching it really highlighted the flaws I'd forgotten about. It's too long for one thing, and that's taking into consideration that this is an already shorter cut. In this truncated version, we already see the adult Toto at the beginning, and, though they're brief, there are several times when the film cuts back to him older for no other reason than to remind you you're watching his memories, and it completely detaches you emotionally from the narrative. I also waver on the inclusion of the romantic aspect, and I know it exists to show what Toto lost in pursuing his dream of making movies, that of a human connection, which is why he's not settled with one person and instead with various women. That said, I think it's slightly underdeveloped in the film. Perhaps if it was someone from his neighborhood that he grew up with, would have resonated more rather than being smitten with some random girl coming in and out of the picture. It might have worked, but again, emotionally, I was not invested in that part of the story at all. There's an even longer cut of this film, which I saw shortly after it was released back in the early 2000s, and though I usually want to see the original vision the filmmaker committed to, in this case, it didn't add anything to the story for me. It was just more of the relationship with Toto and Elena, which, as I said, didn't work for me in the first place. That version of the film was not well received originally, which is why it was edited and resubmitted, going on to win the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. Is the film rewatchable? Definitely. I would obviously recommend the shorter version, around 2 hours, but even check out the other one, labeled Cinema Paradiso, the new version, which clocks in at 173 minutes. For Christ's sake, that's long. To compare and contrast them. It's that the latter one devolved into too much melodrama, which was unnecessary. More is not necessarily better. I also only watch foreign films with subtitles instead of dub versions because it's always been weird to me to see the dialogue not match up with the lips. Freaks me out. As I mentioned in the beginning, all three of the films showcase the love and obsession with film. Whether that be good or bad is in the eye of the beholder. But when I watched all three, I noticed another similarity. In Z Channel, A Magnificent Obsession, and The Movie Man, both Jerry Harvey and Keith Stata had fathers who were alcoholics, resulting in abusive behavior towards the subjects of the film. In Cinema Paradiso, Toto's father died in the war, so all protagonists consider the movies as a form of escapism, as well as a surrogate for a father figure. In Cinema Paradiso's case, Alfredo is an additional concrete physical substitute along with the movies. Each also nods to film as being a communal experience. In Z Channel, it's the locals, including filmmakers, in the Los Angeles area who fondly recall the programming done by Harvey. In The Movie Man, it's the locals and tourists who come to the offbeat theater to watch films. And in Cinema Paradiso, we see the small-town residents watch the flickering screen attentively, sometimes remaining silent in wonder, and other times hooting and hollering at the screen. Finally, all three show changing times and how progress affects the industry they love, whether it's advantageous, disruptive, or simply another obstacle to overcome. In the case of Z Channel, it seemed inevitable that the special moment in history would end when the programming added live events. The movie man Stata is savvy enough to realize that technological updates are the key to survival, as well as having a niche attraction that no one else can compete with. And in Cinema Paradiso, little glimpses of the loss of innocence are peppered throughout, changing both the characters and the theater itself. Can all these films be enjoyed on their own without diving deep into themes and connections? In other words, have I made them too boring for you now to watch because you feel forced to contemplate every little nuance or look for connections that might not be there? Remember, I said that if there are multiple films featured in an episode, I'm not going to choose them randomly. I selected these particular three for an initial reason. They're all about movies, but I also learned something in the process. Because I think it's cool to pass knowledge along, and since I don't have many people to discuss this shit with, here I am spouting off into the void. The documentaries offer a bit of history, one current and one in the not-too-distant past, while the fictional film might be a slice of life, even somewhat autobiographical, for those who find that their lives were shaped in some way by the movies. Mine certainly was, though not to the extent of the subjects in these films. Bottom line is that you can't go wrong with any of these selections. Just take them as you will. But maybe, and hopefully, I got you to look at things in a certain way, to expand your horizons, and to think about the power of film. That wraps up another episode, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and download new episodes every Saturday on your favorite podcast platform. For Scenes from the Screen, I'm Sean, and thanks for listening.